Well, ladies and gentlemen, the debate around the issue we see within women's sports, men identifying as women, going in, taking places awards away from them, which according to some strange people out there, doesn't even exist, but it goes on because society has forgotten what common sense is. We live in a time now where left is right, up is down, and 2 plus 2, well, apparently equals 5. And on Piers Morgan Uncensored, there was a discussion around this topic which we're going to be reacting to because a trans activist defends the idea of men competing against women, as you would expect, and would also be happy, get this, for the Olympics to be essentially destroyed because of woke agendas. And Piers Morgan, well, I think it's safe to say he wasn't putting up with that nonsense, and we're going to be getting into it. But before we do, as always, if you could, make sure to leave a like rating. If you're new, hit that subscribe button, turn on bell notifications so you never miss a video, comment on this video, share this video, follow my socials down below in the description, and let's get into it.
How do you feel, given that trans people want fairness and equality, how do you feel about the issue of trans athletes in women's sport, given that it's so obviously, to me and many other people, unfair and unequal?
Oh, here we go. Well, let's leave it to the experts. The different associations have agreed on different standards for different sports. It's all very relative. A recent study actually found that we're too harsh on trans people in sports and require too much, too long of a transition to a point where the equivalent cisgender person would be at a disadvantage. So it's complicated. It needs to be drawn out by the actual sports authorities rather than politicians or pundits.
Not that complicated, is it really? Men compete against men, women compete against women. But in our lovely, stunning and brave society, we like to overcomplicate things. You see simple solutions in that direction, but our society, oh no, we must head in that direction. Ludicrous.
So if a 6'5" 230-pound biological male boxer puts their hand up and says, I would like to compete in women's boxing, would you be happy with that?
There are 6'5", 300-pound cis women too. Can they not compete?
They don't have the same physiology as a biological male. They don't have the same lung capacity.
They often can.
Haven't got the same muscle mass. No, they haven't. This is the whole point of the debate, is that it's not just about taking less testosterone. You have as Caitlyn Jenner has articulated very well, you have an inbuilt superior physiological advantage over biological females. That's the problem. Now, I want trans athletes...
Not necessarily. Estrogen... Look, estrogen absolutely wreaks havoc on our muscular systems, on our ability to perform in sports. And there's a reason that the rules are so strict, because it does greatly affect our capacity to participate.
Well, we'll disagree.
Yeah, I think this is where a lot of the backlash against the so-called trans community comes from, because we all agreed on that first point that this is pandering and this is companies trying to make money and so on. But when people start coming to arguments about biological males competing in female sports, and by the way, notice the conversation only happens in one direction, and there's a specific reason for that. Nobody is concerned about men's sports or boys' sports. And that is because we're biologically different. And I just think that this is the reason why this conversation has raged on for so long. It's these type of ridiculous, frankly, demands that affect women, affect half of the population, particularly those who play sports. And that's where people just get lost. And I think that's where a lot of the backlash or resentment actually is stemming from. I think in the West, most people at this point don't really care. Go ahead.
I'm gonna go. I'm the only trans person here. This isn't about sports. It's about a gateway for the right to begin banning trans people from access to certain programs.
I'm not right wing.
That's not true.
Well,
I'm not right wing. So how do you figure that?
yeah, Piers Morgan isn't right wing, and this isn't a gateway for people to ban trans people. No, women just want to compete against women. There should be safety and fairness in sports. I really don't get what is so hard to understand about that. And it's funny because these people always say, oh yeah, we care about women. Really? But you're happy for men to go into their sports, take those places away, awards away, even go in their locker rooms? Oh yeah, you care about women.
No, it's
Well,
not.
you
It's
certainly
not a
have
left-right.
right-wing views on trans
It's not a
folks.
left-right.
I don't have
it's not a
right-wing
left-
views
it's
on
not a
trans
left-right
folks. I
issue.
just said to
Look,
you,
I've tried
I
to
want,
explain this
hang on, I
before,
want
too.
trans people to have fairness and equality and the same human rights as everybody else.
And even,
I just
even
don't
if
want,
you
I just don't want trans
personally
people to
consider
erode.
yourself on the right,
I don't
it's
want
still a gateway into banning trans people.
No, I don't
from
want to ban
different
trans
facilities
people. I would
outside
like
of
trans
sports.
people to either compete against their own biological sex, which seems to me the easiest thing to do, or they compete in a new section altogether of trans athletes. What's wrong with that?
Yeah,
So a new separate but equal league is what you're saying.
Can I jump in here? The solution for this is very simple, and we've had the solution, as far as I know, for about a century. And this is simply to have an open sports league and a female-only sports league. A lot of what people call men's sports is not even explicitly men's sports. Anyone is allowed to participate, but because of the biological and physiological advantages men have, if you take the fastest, the strongest people in the world, the best endurance, they're all going to end up being men. That's how it's going to stack up, which is why if you want females to be able to participate in sports, you need to have a separate league because they can't compete in an open,
I completely
competition.
agree. I'm with you. I want you to get fairness and equality, but I don't want you eroding other people's rights.
You keep on saying this, and yet your
Yeah.
actions speak differently.
What actions? What action?
I'm trying to get trans people banned from sports, comparing
I don't want
trans
to ban
women
from sports.
to
Hang on,
people
don't
identifying
misquote
as
me.
animals.
I don't want trans people banned from sports. I
So
want
tiresome.
them to be disallowed from competing against biological women. Different thing.
You
I
can't
want
say
them to be able to
that.
compete in
With
sport,
people of their own gender.
or their own sex. They should compete with people of their own sex.
I think I just saw her head explode
That
there.
is exactly the type of talking point that in 20 years we're going to be looking back at and regretting.
Really? So you think in 20 years' time in the
it's
Olympics?
moving
So
for-
to be clear, then, in the Olympics, you would have just
Oh,
open
wow.
Olympics.
Open season.
Sex is irrelevant. Gender
Open
irrelevant.
season.
Everyone just competes
Yeah,
against each other.
absolutely.
I would too.
Really? So do you understand?
Well, everyone
These
just
people,
Eli,
man.
do you understand that by doing that, you literally end the Olympics? It's all over because only men would win. Do you understand?
care.
That's
They
why
don't
we
care.
separate them.
I don't want to take this down.
Now, hang on. I want Eli to respond. You literally are destroying the Olympics for anyone who's not a man.
Well, that's a very grandiose vision of it, but
Not really.
we
Not
could
really. If you look
very
at the
easily-
times, if you look at the times and the results of men Olympians against women Olympians, you will see that in almost, I think, 98% of all the events, men are so far ahead of women on speed, on power, and everything, every other discipline. Women
And
would
that's
never.
why- that's
women
why
would
we
never.
separate it by
women would never
categorization.
Women would never win a medal again at the Olympics if you had your way. Is that what you
Well,
want?
that's very sexist.
No,
know
it's
that-
a,
do you know that the
it's a
first
physical.
woman
Hang on,
to-
hang on, it's not sexist.
Do you
It's
know
a-
the first
hang on,
woman that
hang on, James,
swam
I'll
the
come to you.
channel?
I'll come to you. It is not sexist. It is a fact. It's why we separate the sexes. When Megan Rapinoe finished her career playing the soccer team, American women's soccer team, she then said that she'd be happy to see a trans woman competing in the women's team, right? Which is fine because it wouldn't take her place. But if you allowed trans women, football players, soccer players, to compete, and enough of them began to do this, there would be no biological women left in the women's national soccer team because they would be
Well,
physically
trans
superior.
people already have the right to do that, and you're not seeing the results that you say you would be seeing.
Yeah, but you see, you and James both have this wonderfully quaint notion that if you open up the Olympics for everyone, that women would continue to win medals. They wouldn't. They'd win nothing.
Obviously, this is complicated, Piers.
It's not complicated.
No, listen.
not.
The
It's not
conversation-
complicated. It's why we separate them. Literally, when Megan Rapinoe's national
The
women's soccer team
conversation-
played the Dallas under-15s,
The conversation-
they lost 8-2.
Yeah, Megan Rapinoe and that team lost 8-2 to under 15s. But they want grown men competing against women. Right. And Megan Rapinoe hasn't just suddenly come out and wanted trans athletes in women's sports. She's been an advocate for that for quite some time. But as you can see, it doesn't matter if the Olympics gets destroyed, if women's sports gets eroded. It doesn't matter to them. Because all they care about are their woke agendas. That is on a higher pedestal than women, than common sense, truth, reality. And this is how we end up in this position. Because feelings must come first ahead of facts. And I love how James says, it's complicated. I don't have to keep saying this. It's not that complicated. And just to say that men should compete against men, it's so controversial. You're right wing, you're this, you're that. The buzzwords don't work anymore. If you're not a transphobe, you're sexist because you're saying women wouldn't do as well. I mean, it's just the facts. Women know this. This is why there is such a big movement against it. They know if these woke activists get their way, and they try so hard to get their way, but they know if they get their way and men are allowed to compete in women's sports, it goes out the window for women. Everything they sacrificed for that sport doesn't matter. And the trans activist goes on to say that in 20 years' time, we'll be looking back on this issue because of the opinion Piers Morgan has, and we'll be looking at it from whatever view they want us to look at it from. But that's wrong as well, because in 20 years' time, and I think even shorter perhaps, we'll be looking back on this issue and thinking, why was this allowed to go on for so long? Why were boys, grown men, allowed to go into girls' and women's sports for so long? Why were they allowed in their locker rooms? That's what we'll be looking at, and that will be the question being asked. Why was that allowed to go on for so long? And for people like Megan Rapinoe, who have advocated for it, as I've mentioned in a previous video, I would love for her to come out and apologise. But she won't. All these people who advocate for it will go silent. Leave your thoughts down below, ladies and gentlemen, on this debate. What are your thoughts on what was said? I'd like to know. If you have enjoyed, make sure to leave a like rating. If you're new, hit that subscribe button, turn on bell notifications so you never miss a video, comment on this video, share this video, follow my socials down below in the description. But until next time, it has been your host, JD. I'm out. Peace.